What's up, tubers? Tio here, Simplistic Fishing, coming back at you tonight to do another lake breakdown. This time we're going out to West Texas to a lake that almost sounds Halloweenish, and that's because it's named Fort Phantom Hill. Now this one's out closer towards the Abilene side. We're going to break it down tonight. First off, I'm going to start you off on the Google Earth side. As I went through this video, I thought maybe I could show you the offshore stuff and the Google Earth stuff all in one video because it's not a huge lake, but I did run out of time. So we're going to have another video on Fort Phantom Hill talking about the offshore stuff. But tonight we're going into Google Earth, we're drawing the water down, and we're going to see what we can find. Let's go. Well, like we always do before we break down any lake in Texas, we always go out and check out the Texas Park and Wildlife page. And that's what we're going to do right here. We're looking at Fort Phantom Hill Lake. This one is on Elm Creek in Jones County, just on the north side of Abilene. The surface acre is 4,213 acres, maximum depth of 66 feet. And this was impounded in 1938. So it's still a fairly young lake, I guess I would say. You can click on this link right here. It'll take you to current lake levels, which I think is going to be very important on this lake because as you can see where it talks about down here on the fluctuation, moderate to severe, sometimes prone to long periods with dropping water levels. I have to say, usually when I see that, it scares me for bass fishing. If I see that crazy fluctuation going on, it usually makes bass fishing a little bit tougher. And then the other thing too is it's going to really put those fish in particular areas that they're going to stay in for the most part because that water can fluctuate so much. So that might make it a little bit easier, but I don't think the population is going to be as abundant because of that. I could be totally wrong, but that's just going to be my hunch on this one. Watch, there's probably tanks in this one, but they're all in like some certain secret area that we don't know about. All right, so aquatic vegetation, stargrass, bulrush, pondweed, smartweed at full water levels. So I guess it really just depends on where you're at on the water level as far as what type of aquatic vegetation you're going to get. I was surprised to see here that predominant fish species, largemouth bass, white and hybrid striped bass, blue and flathead catfish, white crappie, and freshwater drum. When we go over here and we look at the lake records, you can go in here and look at the largemouth. It's giant, right? 13.33. Length was 26.75. It was caught in 2024, so it was caught like 5 months ago, and he caught it on a crawl or a soft plastic. So Eric Lewis, I doubt you're watching the video, but if you are, man, congratulations. That is a donkey. All right, let's go ahead and move this back and let's see what else we've got here. So we move on down. It does talk about fish species. It shows that the largemouth bass is good, catfish, crappie, and white bass, all excellent, and sunfish being fair. You can also tell a little bit about the lake too up here just reading through the angling opportunities. So it talks about blue catfish, hybrid striped bass, and white crappie provide the most consistent fishing opportunities in this lake, but largemouth bass can occasionally be good as well. Florida largemouth bass were introduced in 1976, which means there's probably a pretty good population of them still in there, just depending on the fluctuation of the water. But it's guaranteed now because old Eric catching the 13-pounder out here definitely has got our attention. So let's go ahead and move down a little bit further. There is Texas Parks and Wildlife fishing attractors and things like that set up in this lake. I've got those on the card as well, and you'll see it in the map as we talk about it. And then you can go down and just read a little bit more about tips and tactics. We'll just skip all of this stuff and go right to largemouth bass. Fishing can be good, especially in the summer and the winter. Slow rolling spinnerbaits along the steeper, rocky areas of the east side during the winter is effective. As summer approaches, buzzbaits and spinnerbaits work very well, especially from sunrise till about noon. So definitely something to consider there. My guess is there's probably some good offshore stuff on this too, and that's what we're going to go look at. Let's switch over. Let's take a look at it from the Google Earth side. If we have time, we'll switch over to the Navionics mobile app. If not, we'll come back for a second video, and we'll hit it with the Navionics mobile app and see what else we can find from a contour perspective. So here we go. Let's dive into Google Earth. Well, now we switched over to Google Earth and it's time to take a look at Fort Phantom Hill. But before I do, I just want to point out, check out all the lake breakdowns that Simplistic Fishing has done. We have several different lakes that we have, or several different states that we have out there with several different lakes underneath them. So make sure if you're a tournament fisher or if you go out of state from Texas and you're doing any type of tournament fishing or just plain fun fishing, this is a great way to already have that lake broken down for you, and you can go out there and hopefully get yourself on some good spots pretty quick. Now, talking about Texas, we've got a ton of lakes in Texas, over 100 of them. This time, like we mentioned, we're working on Phantom Hill, so I just got to find it here so we can get started. And of course, I don't know why I'm looking for Phantom when I should be looking for Fort. And I've called it Fort Phantom. I left off the hill part, but that's all right. So let's go ahead and open this up and let's see what we have. I'm going to go ahead and double click this thing. It's going to start to zoom it in for us and show us what we've got out here for this lake. Now, one thing I noticed as soon as I pull this up, and I'm looking at, the spots that we've picked and things like that, is that one, there's a lot more rock on the right side. Notice that. And then I also noticed the right side's the east side. And I remember us talking about something about working on the east side during the summer and the winter. The other thing that I notice here is the water clarity. It really, really stands out, at least on this image. So at some point, this thing gets pretty dark, and then at other points of time, it looks like it has some pretty decent water clarity. So that's definitely something you got to keep in mind too when you're fishing, is pay attention to that water clarity. That muddy water, to me, is just it's really hard to fish. There's some people that have figured it out, but for me, that makes it super tough. So if it starts getting muddy, I'm usually backing out of that and I'm getting out towards more clear water. That could just be me though, just because I grew up in Missouri, grew up around clear water, so I'm just more comfortable around the cleaner water than I am the dirtier water. Not to say you can't catch fish in dirty water. I've definitely done it, but I feel like my percentages are higher if I can get out, at least not clear water, but just get out to a little bit cleaner. This brown stuff would scare me a little bit for sure. All right, so let's move this. Let's go up here to this history bar, and we're going to get it back to a regular image. So that's pretty good clarity. I don't have any issues with that clarity at all. And this looks good. It looks like maybe when it's in drought, that could become an issue, or maybe if it's been in a drought and then all of a sudden you get a big flood, that's probably when you're going to get that really muddy water out here. But anyways, we'll stop talking about the muddy water. Let's start talking about the stuff that we have out here. So first off, let's just go through these. We did find some brush, and we've got those marked here as well. And you're going to see these in these little red tracks. And what this is that when we broke this down, we were able to see some bushes and brush that was all in here. These are like little, I don't know if they're really willow bushes or what they are, but there's several of them in these different areas. And we're going to talk about them when we do the lake breakdown, and you'll see them. But even some of these, even right now in this image where the water's starting to go down again, you can see where these little sections of vegetation or cover is, where these bushes are. So when the water is really all the way up, you don't see those at all. The water's up here more towards the bank line. Looks like those might be a little bit too shallow, but the other ones, we've got other ones out here that when water was down, we could really see them, and we'll point those out to you. So you got the brush lines. We've also got creeks and ponds. Those are going to be outlined here in the creeks. It's more like the creek channels. So we've got the channels down here. Now this looks fairly shallow. It also looks like it's pretty turbulent down here. So I'm not sure if this is going to be a good place from a bass standpoint, maybe some catfish and stuff like that. But I think your bass fishing is going to be more aimed towards this side, towards the north and east side, maybe, into here, from here, maybe up towards the right. I could be wrong, but that's just my guess. I've never been to this actual lake, so I'm not sure. But here are your channels. There's some really good channels out here. If you pull the water down, I think it goes back to 2013, I believe it was, or 14. There you go, 2014. You can see the water came way down here. And so we've marked these channels. And these channels become important because if it is a good fishing area, you can really stay within the channel and find some really good offshore stuff by doing that. But like I said before, if it's me, I'm probably going to focus more. I'm probably going to put like an imaginary line about right in here and put more of my focus more on this east side and pretty much all the way up here. Then when I get off the east side, I'm probably going to stop fishing this west side, probably like right around in this area. If I'm just pre-fishing. Now, if I'm out there a bunch, I'm going to fish it all. But if I just had to limit my time, that's probably where I would focus. All right, let's talk about the offshore stuff too. Now, offshore stuff doesn't actually show up on Google Earth unless it is in the exact date that you imported in. The way that you do that is you just go over here to this offshore thing and you double click it. And then that's going to change the date up top. You're going to see it go all the way up to the top. And then it's going to pop in these offshore spots. We're going to talk about these spots when we move over to the Navionics mobile app. And you'll be able to see this lake from a contour perspective. And those offshore spots will make a lot more sense. Another item that we have out here for you guys as part of this breakdown are all the different ramps. Now, if you've watched any of the videos from me in the past on lake breakdowns, the ramp pattern is a real pattern. It is a real deal. You've got to try it. It's usually more like late spring when it tends to work the best for me. Summertime, it works as well. If you think about it, it makes sense. These lakes that we fish, they're all just muddy, silty bottom. Not all of them, but the majority of them are. And so if you put a big old concrete ramp out there, that's the only hard spot in the area that they can attract to. The bluegills also like it. It gets the algae up on it. There's food there. It attracts the bass. It can definitely be a good pattern. So take advantage of it and keep trying it until you figure it out. And then you'll realize the ramp pattern is a deal. It's a timing thing, but it's definitely a deal. So all the ramps are here. The other thing that's nice about this is if you're out on the lake, you've imported all these waypoints in, you start having some problems, and maybe you launch way up here and you're way down here and there's no way you're making it up there. At least you're going to know where the closest ramps are to you, or where you can actually go out, get some help, whatever you need to do. So the ramps and slabs are all marked. Now, structure and cover, we've got a lot of that. And you can see there's a ton of it in here. This can be anywhere from the rocks, the flats, the debris, the ledges, all the stuff we found there. We've got it all marked, and we're going to talk to you guys about that stuff. And then last but not least, Texas Park and Wildlife had a few fish attractors they put in here. One's up here off of this little area out here. And then the other two are over here on the right side off in this bay. And to me, obviously for crappie fishermen, that's where you want to focus. To me, I'm going to go focus on those with the forward-facing sonar, the live scope, see if those are brush piles, what type of fish attractors they are. If there's crappie there, and if there's catfish there, there's going to be bass there. So to me, if there's crappie there, there's bass there. There just has to be. The bass love to eat the crappie, and that's got to be a good place to look. So that's the Texas Park and Wildlife fish attractors. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to select over here on the left side. I'm going to select everything except for the offshore. I'm going to take that off. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to hide this side so we can get a better view. Then I'm also going to draw the water down to 2014. Now, 2013, you guys are pretty low right now, or at least you were in 2023. I don't know. That was the latest image. You may have came up since then, but in 2023, this lake was still pretty low. There's other times when this lake was much fuller than what we were showing in 2023. And you can see here, it kind of changes that throughout the times. But the best image that I found, really, that the lake's really high right here, 2016, looks really, really good. I wonder if those bushes up there under the water in 2016. Yeah, they are. So it really fluctuates a lot. I'm seeing a lot of water fluctuation just between these dates. So we're going to go back one more. And we're going to take a 2015, 12 of 2015. So you can tell here now the water is super low. Let's start here on the bottom. We'll just work our way up. You can see here I've just marked the channels. Again, I don't feel that comfortable in this area. I could be totally wrong, but you've got a lot of water fluctuation in here. You don't have a lot of water in here. It's very shallow, so I'm not thinking this is a very high percentage area for bass, unfortunately. Now, we do have a ramp back here, so you can get to the ramp if the water's high enough. There is some stuff to look at here, though, if you're back here bass fishing. Notice these really good flats right here. You got a couple of them right there. You even have maybe even a little decent point there if the water's up to a decent height. You got a little hidden hump out here. Again, caution you with the depth here. We can't tell what the depth is here when we're marking it with Google Earth, so these can be totally off right here. But they're definitely flats. We're not lying about that. We've got some more flats back here. Some slabs. These are just slabs. Some of them are personal slabs. Some of them are slabs they put in here. But the other thing to notice on this east side is you've got a lot of this rock, right? You're kind of getting on a little bit more hard stuff over here on these sides. Here's another ramp. This one could be juicy. I mean, imagine coming out here the next year and you find this ramp way out here in the middle of the lake, right? That's like an awesome offshore spot that you can find. So these little slabs that are out here can be really, really tricky to find, but once you find them, they're good. There's actually another one hidden right in there. You can kind of see it as we zoom in. You can see the hard spot right in here. So it might be another good spot to check out there too. As we move on up, we've got several different ramps and slabs, more ramps to check out. Again, just pretty good bank line, just based on all the rock and stuff that's all along the bank line. I would have marked it with all rock, but it's all rock. So it would have just been rock the whole time. So I'm not going to do that to you guys. We've got a little hidden hump that's out here too. We'll talk about that on Navionics Mobile. We'll be able to see it out there. A lay down out there. There's another hump out here on this side. As we move up again, some more of these ramps. Now on this lake, this ramp thing could be the deal because it is a lot different, right? When you see these ramps, you see a lot of rock, which the rock's going to be good too, but the ramps are pretty much isolated in most of these spots. So this ramp thing could be the deal out here on this lake. I'll definitely check it out. All right, so we're going to keep moving up. Again, yes, there's a lot of rocks and stuff, but I can't mark it all. So just know that this whole side of this lake has got really good rock in it. These points can be really good any of these points where the rock comes out, like right here around this dock, this could be a good little spot. Look at the nice rock that's out around this whole area and around this dock. And again, you move the water up, you're not going to see that. You're not even going to know it's there, but it's definitely there, and it's a rocky area. So something to consider when you're out here fishing this lake is just paying attention. Maybe not even being in a specific spot like what we're looking at, specific things, but general area. You've got rock from about right here all the way down. Man, I think it goes down this whole bank line pretty much, all the way down to about this slab right here. So that entire bank line from here all the way to here has potential for sure, just based on all the rock and debris and stuff like that that's around it. And again, that's that east side, and they had talked about the east side in the Texas Park and Wildlife fishing page. So definitely something to keep in mind as you go out here. Keep moving up. We got another ramp. We talked about that one. Again, this is all that rock I talked to you about. I mean, even like right in here, this looks juicy, right? It looks like it has decent depth. You've actually got a little shade here that's been created from this wall. And then again, if the water's at a decent level, this is 2016, the water's up, but that's all underwater, and that's all prime time fishing area to go take a look at. So definitely some good stuff here, but it's kind of hidden with the water up. But you pull the water down, you're like, dang, this got some pretty good stuff on. Lots of rock on this lake, especially on this east side. Just like these points as well. These points are nothing right now, right? If you look at it from 2014, you're going to say, yeah, you don't even want to fish there. But you bring that up to 2016, and now all of a sudden, all that stuff becomes into play. Those little points that are out there, those could actually be decent little points. In fact, I'm half tempted to mark them for you guys to say, dude, check these out. But I'm scared to, because I don't know how often the water actually comes up that high. But if the water's up high and you're watching this video, these 3 little points here are going to come into play just based on the shade that they provide. All right, then moving up, nice little isolated rock pile out here. It doesn't look like much here, but again, you move the water up and that rock is way out here. You're not having to worry about coming up on the bank and finding it. You're actually going to be able to set out a little bit and find something there. So that one's a really good one for sure. Moving on up, you can see the bank line kind of goes to crap, goes to this muddy stuff, nothing really that we can mark for you guys until you get about right in here. You may want to look at this point. There is a little bit of a hard spot on this point, and this stuff is really hard for us to mark because to me it looks like this could be like a shell bed, possibly. It could be a bunch of stupid birds sitting there and it just looks like a shell bed. It could be some kind of rock bed. There's just no telling what it could be, but just the fact that where it sets, right? Because you've got this creek channel that's coming back through here. And I don't know for sure if it goes that way. It looks like it does, but what if it actually spins up a little bit more this way? What if that actually is a shell bed? That is going to be a primo spot to go look at. So as you go back here, maybe if you're just checking out this channel and stuff, don't forget to swing over and check out this little point that's right out here off the edge. All right, so we're going to move on up, see what else we find. Here's that shallow brush. Again, the water's got to come into play for that brush to come into play, but it is out there. You've got a slab out here, too, that's going to hidden out in the water. And then way out here, you've got this little rock pile. And this one's nice because it actually has some definition to it. So typically your bigger fish are going to be out here. And then as you work your way in, you're going to get to the smaller fish. So when you come up, don't come run up here and fish the back first. Come up here and stay out. Stay away from this thing. Cast out here and work your way left, right, left, right, left, right, all the way to the back of that rock pile. All right, so let's move on back. Here's another rock pile out here. Again, this one is going to be pretty shallow, but water's up. That rock pile is definitely in play. To keep moving on, this point looks pretty good, but the problem with it is I don't see a lot of hard spots off this point. It just looks like this big sandy point, maybe a little hard spot off here off the edge that you want to check out. It's kind of hard to tell if that's rock or not. If that is rock, that's money. If it's not rock, then I'm not sure there's going to be much relating to that. But one thing you can see here is there's a lot of rock all along this bank line. In fact, let's go ahead and, well, now we won't do it because it'll mess us up. But basically, you could fish from right here all the way up to say, man, this whole thing looks like rock. I mean, look at this. There's all kinds of rock. I mean, if the water's up, you can get around these docks and fish around the docks and the rocks, or maybe just come down through here with the crankbait, figure out the depth that your fish are relating to, and boom, you're just cranking these rocks just like you would be if you were crankbaiting the dam or something like that. Now, the one thing that you might have here is you might have limitations on how close you can get to this thing. They may have it buoyed off out here. to where you can't get close to it. So maybe you can only hit this part, then you got to switch over and hit this too. Now, if I'm looking at this bank line and I'm trying to think of where maybe the highest percentage areas on this bank line the fish may be, there's two spots in this one little image that really stick out to me. One is going to be right here, and I don't know if you can get to that. Again, this could be buoyed off, so it might not let you get down there, but that's definitely going to be a good spot because you have that little transition area from where you have that rock to that little sandy spot. Plus, it looks like you got a little fence or something coming down here too, and they always like to gather around that. The other side would be just the same thing on the other side right here. Now, I don't know if those are old boat ramps or what they are, but again, another transition area where it's really, really rocky, and then it kind of tails off, and then it gets really, really rocky again. They like to set right on those transition lines. So this area right here and this area right here, if I can get to it, I would spend a little more time focusing on those two areas. There's another spot here. It's kind of hidden. You can't see it, but it's going to be right here. Right there. Another good little like area for them just to camp out in and wait for some food to get to them. All right, let's keep moving on. Again, some really good rock. It looks like that rock goes from here all the way down to that point right there. So if you don't feel comfortable going offshore, come over here and fish this with some crankbaits, please. Or yeah, I'd just go crankbaits. I wouldn't screw around with anything else. I'd just hit it with crankbaits constantly until you figure out what type of crankbait they like, what depth they're at, stuff like that. But I'm telling you, I'm guaranteed from right here, the top of this down to here, you can find a fish. All right, let's keep moving on. We've got some rock that's right in here that could come into play. Some really good slab. This slab comes all the way out here, and then it ends with a nice little isolated rock pile as well. So that could definitely come into play. Really good rock out here, along with this other ramp that's out here. Again, it doesn't look like much here, but we bring the water up. That stuff's way into play, and that's definitely some good, like not super offshore, but just barely offshore enough to get you enough depth to where you can catch some fish. All right, so let's keep moving back over here, see what else we can find. Got a little more rock in there. Pretty good flats back in here. You know, springtime, if your water's up enough, you got some pretty good flats back in here. And then over in here, again, this is all about the depth of the water and how high the lake is. But some isolated little rocky spots here and some really good isolated rocky and hard spots that are by these docks. So you can see these docks also have some vegetation underneath them. These might be those old willow bushes. Right here, there's a little bit. There's a string of them here as well. And those could be totally gone now. This was back in 2014. But what you do notice is there's little areas where we've got some really good rock. 1, 2, 3, and 4. So you could focus on those areas. Here's another one, 5. And then this is up a little bit shallower. I would also focus on this point, right? We're not going to get rid of the points. This is probably an offshore spot more than likely, which is why it's not marked there. But anytime you see a point like that, you're definitely going to fish it. Fish all the points that you can for sure all the time. You got rock here too off of this point. This one looks pretty good. It's not completely isolated, but you do have a little transition that goes from there to here. And then really just kind of blah. And then you get a little bit of area where it gets a little bumpier rock, a little bigger rock. So that could be a nice little point to just set off of. Doesn't look like much here. But if I put the water up, that's definitely be a good spot. The other thing to think about too is when you're over here, if the water is up high enough, is do some side scanning around all these docks and look for brush piles out here, out in front of the docks. A lot of times they'll put them either right below the docks so they can just set on them and do their jigging and crappie stuff. But then other times they'll throw them out here, like, far enough to make it to where it's a cast for them from the docks. So those are primo areas to look at. A lot of times people come in and scan the docks and they'll get up real close to them because they're scanning underneath the docks. But the money spots are actually just to their right over here. And they're brush piles that all those dock owners have put out there over time. All right, now check out this spot. Doesn't look like much here. We draw this back to 2014. We've got a decent little ledge that's out here. Little hard spot. Might even have a little hard spot there off the point. Some pretty good stuff going on right here in this area. I would definitely take a look at that. Another slab back in there, a couple slabs back in here. Not too much going on. Big flats back in here. I don't even know if these would ever come into play. They may in the springtime, and maybe in like late fall when it's when they're coming up super shallow in the fall. This could come into play. But other than that, I think you're not going to find too much back in at least this area. Now the water is a lot deeper down here, so there's probably some goodness all around in here that we just can't see. Let's keep moving up, see what else we can find from the Google Earth side first, and then, like I said, we'll talk about moving over to To the mobile side, I think we're going to have to do that on a second video, though, because I'm talking too much on this one. We got some pretty good rocks in here as well. Up here, we've got a hump. And then here are those Texas Park and Wildlife fish attractors. Now, I can't see them on Google Earth, but this was 2014, so maybe they put them in there since 2014. But this does look like a really good area to find some fish for sure. Another boat ramp over here. And then you've got your dam that's on this side that, it looks okay. Not a lot of rock, not a lot of crazy stuff, but decent dam. All right, let's keep sliding back over. See what else we can find in here. We've got a nice little ramp that's back here. Here's another one of those Texas Park and Wildlife brush piles. And then you'll notice the yellow lines over here on the side. That's that brush that we were talking to you about that sometimes it's going to be in the water and sometimes it's not. It's really just going to all depend on the water level. Where the water level is whether that becomes into play or not. That's also only when they're up super shallow, right? It's not really going to come into play very often, but we've got it marked for you. We've got some ramps out here as well. We've got some pretty decent rock that's out here off the edge of this. And if I zoom in, the waypoint's actually right on top of it, but there's some type of rock or debris right here off the edge of this point. So you'll want to do that. You also want to fish this breaker. Those break walls can be pretty good. So definitely, what I like to do is just go up to them really quick and just run around them with a spinnerbait. And you'd be surprised at how many fish you'll catch right there, right off the brick wall that most people just run right past. You got some brush back in here too that could come into play. A little isolated hump that's over here too. And then here are these are some pretty thicker brush lines. So maybe they're still there. In fact, what we can do is we can move this up to 2023. Actually, we can't. I was hoping maybe we could and we could still see it, but I can't get the water down far enough to see it. But hopefully those are still there. And if they are, basically you got these underwater brush lines so you can fish around the edges of these things. Right there, right here, right over here as well. And then as we move further down the bank line, there's not a ton here, right? All we really found were those little brush lines and a bunch of slabs. So as I mentioned before, I honestly am probably not going to focus a lot of time. Once I get done fishing about right in there, I'm probably going to check out and say, I'm going to skip this whole section of the lake. There's nothing here that really stands out to me that, but like I said, if I had time, I would go over here, at least check it out. Because sometimes these spots over here, that look like there's nothing there. Someone's put some brush piles out there. There's some debris out there I don't know about, old bridge, something like that. You never know. But there always can be stuff out there. But if you're limited on time, I would focus on really where we have a lot of those waypoints. Focus on those rocky banks that we talked about, the really good ones. There was that one that was pretty much like up in here, from here all the way down. And then there was that other one where we had that little I don't know if that's a water treatment plant or what the heck it is, electric plant, whatever it is, but right in here from here all the way to about right here, that just looks like primo. Not, don't have to think a lot. You're just going to go down, put a crankbait down and go to work. So take a look at those spots. Hopefully this helps you guys out. I've got it out there on the site, simplisticfishing.com. When you come back next week, or when I come back, I should say, next week, I will have the Navionics mobile version of this lake. We're going to go out and we're going to look at it from a contour perspective and see what types of things we can find out there. All right, guys, until next time, I hope you catch your PB. Take it easy.